Hello and welcome to Artclstudios. I'm Hansiel, and tonight we're back with a new drawing and talking. And tonight's drawing and talking is gonna be interesting one because it's gonna be an interview. I'm sure you guys have seen that before. Tonight we'll be interviewing Greg Anderson Elysee. I hope I pronounced your name correct. And without further ado, he's gonna join us. All right, so he just launched a new campaign for his new comic book, and we're gonna have him here talk about it tonight. Man, I want to say first of all, thank you for taking the opportunity to speak to me today, and I'm figuring this out again because I got a little sidetracked. Um, but I want to say congratulations also on meeting your goal. That I just saw that you posted it, man. Congratulations and welcome. Tell us who you are, uh, what you do, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, what's going on, brothers? Our stories, which is why in every story he's meeting a different character from some type of black boy. Just to showcase what we got. And we got a whole bunch of gods and heroes and all types from all our very black culture that also do stories.
Book. And hopefully it's not a spoiler, because for those readers, and I'm bringing out volume one. And I was when I read this part in this book, I was so like blown away by how you did this. Volume one, no, it's actually volume two actually. Verses, which was so I was like, whoa. And at that time, I don't think Spider Verse had come out yet. So this was way before. So you had this vision, and one character that stood out to me when sorry for those whoever gets spoiled by it, but I really love the part that you introduce Anansi to Papa Legba, and I was like, no way, how did he do this? Can you tell a little bit about? And yeah, so I'm gonna show this in the screen here now. So this was the part that you introduced Papa Legba to Anansi. To me, that was so epic because, as you can see, I'm from the Dominican Republic. We're neighbors, Haitian Dominicans, and one of my dear Haitian friends gave me this hat. So that has always been, that's part of our culture, and to see our culture in there, even though we'll call it differently, like for us, Papa Legba is pa, Papa Legua, yeah, and to see him here, it was like such a bright, thing. So can you tell us a little bit about who this character is and why you decided to add him in your story?
Yeah, so Pablo Legba is the god of your life. You go to a crossroads, he sort of directs you to where you need to be. He's a bit of a trickster as well. And I don't know, there's just something about Legba that always sort of pulled to me when it came to doing my own reading and research on the religion and reading about different stories. But I always hated seeing how they sort of bastardize him in the media, especially American Horror Story. American Horror Story like did a completely disrespectful interpretation of him, And so when I made sure to write him in this, I wanted it to be based off of the research that I've read, the knowledge that I picked up on, even visually, how he was supposed to look and so on. And in the book, I also had sort of poke fun of him being very annoyed being represented the way he is.
Very annoyed.
Yeah.
And let's get into that a little bit because he's one of my favorite from the mythology and from the Orishas because of his label, the bad guy, and so is Anansi, which is sort of similar, the similar gods, right? Similar god of trickery. So they're labeled as a bad character sometimes, but I always say like if you fall for these tricks, then it's on you. You can't blame them because they're only there to teach you a lesson. So to me, it was so interesting and cool to see that. What was it that like said to you that like so let's flip the screen here. Um, so you launch your fourth Kickstarter for your book. What was it that said now this is the time to launch it, and how long have you been working on preparing this?
So, funny thing, with that particular book, that was supposed to come out before volume two.
Hmm.
I've been working on this particular one for quite a while. I wrote the script a long time ago, which sort of sucks in a way. Not sucks, but one of the themes of the police brutality. So that scene was written years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and it's unfortunate that when people see it now and how crazy relevant it is for the past
Mm.
year going on, and what's been going on from before, but this year has just been really intense with the civil unrest. But it's just timing, like I had to take the time to find the right artist for it, the right team. I was looking for an artist who really knew city life, so on and so forth. So, I was just jumping between trying to find the right person to Miguel Blanco signed on. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, just working with each other's schedules. But he just took it to a whole nother level. And then when I found that Gel Davis Cooper does the colors,
Mm-hmm.
she knocked everything out the park.
Nice. And so I'm just sending it right now to a bunch of people. I forgot to send it to people that I'm inviting to, to be proud of this. Because to me, this is a big deal. This is a big moment. This is a big uh, step in New York culture, because New York for the longest has been known for like hip hop. And this new book that you got dropping, it's sort of like the merge of like hip hop culture, New York, and all coming together. And as we're seeing how evolved this like community of comic book artists and artists are coming out of New York and creating their own comics. This is like that most epic thing I've seen because you're merging both stories being told by an independent writer, an independent creator. So this is like a big deal, and everybody needs to know about this. That's why I'm so hyped, man. You don't even know, you don't even know. But what what are some things that you might say that you let me put it like this, that you would recommend to like a new artist wants to create their comic books? What are some of the steps that made you do this, or how did you go about creating it? Because this is a whole production.
I mean, it all comes down to just learning your craft, so always practicing, always doing research, reading the things that you enjoy, trying to break down what it is that you enjoy about it, and why you enjoy it, and I've always wanted to make comics, I've always wanted to write. I've been writing since I was in first grade. It's been my passion. I got into comic books in like second grade, and I started like really focusing on it within the past couple of I guess maybe since high school, college. But it's really just looking at the people that I admire, and I used to say when it comes to making comics, it's both harder and easier than you actually expect. There's a lot of things that people make difficult, and they think it's really difficult to do, but honestly, just creating pages and getting ready for print, they're way easier than people actually think it is. At the same time, there's cons to it. There's a lot of things you gotta jump over, stressful ass things, so but it's really about also being open, being adaptable, and asking questions, because sometimes they're just very simple steps to take.
So and it's funny. Let me talk a little bit about how I met you, because it happened that I met you at a Brooklyn con. Like there was a comic con in Brooklyn, and again with your backstory and the character, I was automatically attracted to it. And then I go to a comic book in Brooklyn, Bulletproof Comics, and you're there delivering your own comic books. So not only did you print at that time, I don't know how you're doing it now, but at that time it was so like such a vision that I saw when you went to comic cons, different comic cons in New York. You get your comic book delivered yourself. You get them printed. So your hand is all the way in the production system, in the production thing. So this is not anybody's job. Not anybody can just say like, hey, I'm waking up tomorrow, I'm gonna write a comic book and I'll be done and I'm gonna take it to a comic book shop. So how did you build that courage and develop the relationships? Because again, I feel like if you're taking it yourself to the comic book shop, you need to develop some sort of relationship. But I also say that your comic book will sell themselves. So tell us a little bit about that process.
Yeah, so first of all, shout out to my dude Akeem Print. Yeah, well, I've been a huge comic geek since I said the second grade. Comics has been like my life, it's been my obsession. And when I guess when I started, before I started dabbling and creating my own, I was always sort of involved in the conventions. I was meeting a lot of creators. I worked at Bulletproof Comics actually.
Oh wow!
For a little while, and so like I just knew a lot of people. I was doing a lot of interviews and writing columns for comic sites, so I was always like pretty cool with certain creators. So when it came time for me to create, my own, I got a lot of support because I've just been supporting so many people in the industry for so long, and being able to go to comic shops because I've been to these comic shops, so they know who I am. So I think that made some of the process a little easier. So one thing when it comes to comics, when it comes to any type of creative field, you just got to know networking is extremely, extremely important. Like it is true. Sometimes you got to know people because those people can just, point you to the right direction, and so a lot of people just also want to support, the fact that where you come from, if you're starting to do something cool and people are into it, it's like they get a lot of pride, like, yo, this person came from my hood,
right?
This person was at the top, and so on and so forth, so it's always a lot of fun just to see, just to get that support,
Yeah, I know, and to me that was, again, like you just mentioned, that last part really, really sparked. I was like, whoa, like when you embark in this journey of like becoming a creative, sometimes it's like all you see is roadblocks along the way. All you see is like, oh, it's gonna be so hard, and sometimes before you start, you give up, But as you see people like you developing things like so again, you said you were working close with people that were doing this, so that build your trust, that build your comfort level and your relationships. So for creators out there, by the way, if you guys have any questions along the way, just ask. Away, I want to create this bridge, for us to, build communities, even though we used to live in the same community before. Now we don't, but we still live in this internet community, which is sort of the same thing. Now, I want to get into this. I guess now is a good time, and maybe we can develop from there. But with the passing of Chadwick Boseman, as Black Panther, one of the latest iconic heroes that we've had, how was that for you? Like, tell me a little bit about that because I know.
So when that news sort of came, I was playing a Marvel game with my siblings. Like we take sometimes we try to take a couple of nights or at least even once a week just to sit down and try to save the universe of Marvel superheroes. And literally right when we were doing that, I got the news. Someone texted me. I got two texts actually, two separate groups got me. That were like, yo, Chadwick Boseman died. And I just stopped playing. I was like, whoa. And I told my sister is also a comic head, and
she's a great artist, by the way, Blossom.
Yeah, Blossom Blair.
Blossom Blair.
She took it really hard as well, and we just had to stop playing. And the next, I was like literally depressed for like the whole day, And I think not only just were we not expecting that, but I don't think we were also expecting just how hard it was, of him passing, because it was like we all appreciated him, we were all fans of him, but we didn't really think about the impact that he really did. Black Panther, in a sense, he sort of became like his own story. He was our own sort of like mythological hero that was brought to life by Chadwick Boseman.
Right. Yeah. So to me, when I saw that, I also I automatically I thought of like indie characters. How, of course, it was a horrible news, and to even though it was a fictional character that he played, he was that character, I guess. And for the new generation, seeing him as the face, it was such a a big hit. And with the commotion that's going on right now, with all that psychological, I always think that there's a lot of psychological things put together, and things are just get out of proportion, and we get hit, and we don't know how to respond because it's coming from all places, right? But seeing also like a relief to, and and it might sound wrong, but I also think there's a relief to know that there's people creating still. That sometimes we get hit with such hard news that we drift away from our goals and from our visions because we're like, oh, Hollywood is all this stuff. Hollywood is negative things, right? But there's so many beautiful stories that get told through these characters, and again, being a renaissance. I feel like there's a renaissance in black heroes going on right now. Um, so seeing again your character, bringing it back to Isnana, is such a breath of fresh air to see that you're working hard. Has there been any proposals by any major networks that you've rejected? I don't know.
Um, nothing like to do with outside media. I've had two particularly big indie companies that tried to um, pick up this data. The first one, I was going through some back and forth because I mean, it's my baby, you know. I didn't want
Mm-hmm.
to. Ah, I don't know. It was a bit of a thing I was going through. I wasn't sure if I wanted to. But when I sort of finally put my guard down, I think they decided to go elsewhere because it was like, oh no, we decided we're gonna just do our own stuff now. And I was like, all right, it's cool. But the thing is, it's like I'm not in a rush to try to put this down anywhere, you know,
Mm.
because I just want to focus on developing the story, developing its book and the franchise. And I feel like a lot of mistakes that a lot of comic creators have, especially indie creators,
Mm-hmm.
they create a concept and quickly they want to try to turn it into something else. They want to turn it into like a movie or animated show, but then it's like that takes so much priority that they end up falling behind with their comic book.
Mm.
Years for the next issue. And I know me as a comic fan, as an indie fan, I was so used to always waiting for years for the next freaking issue that I
Mm-hmm.
was like not doing that with this novel, you know. And people seem to get surprised when I say I'm not interested right now in a movie or an animated show. You know, people don't really think about all the work that goes into it, all the time that goes into it.
Right.
I just want to get the stories out.
Yeah. So applause to you because people are willing to sell their ideas quick. Sometimes people just have something they could want to turn into something else, but the patience is so admirable, man. Because I feel like, especially in the age we live in, we want to rush into make this live in another place. And I was working one of my clients. I was helping him editing his comic, and I asked him, what does he think about animation? What does he think about certain genres? And he's like, I acknowledge them, but I feel like there's art form that has to stay in one place. And of course, I'm not saying for that like we won't. I hope to see a movie of Isnana in the future. I hope to see all these things. But it's again, like you said, it's so important to hound in like the building, the development of the project before you release it, to make it into another medium. So I think you're doing an amazing job at that, keeping it within a, keeping it to a medium. Um, and again, yeah, man, congrats. How was the process now when it comes to Kickstarter? I know many of us have ideas, and many people want to do a bunch of things, but they're like, oh, I have no backing. I don't know what I'm gonna do. When it comes to Kickstarter, it's like, oh, I don't know if I'm gonna meet my goal. So just the fact of on the unknown part of meeting a goal is scary. How do you deal with that pressure? Like, what's the planning for a Kickstart?
Man, it's stressful. That's all I can say. Wait, can you hear me? I feel like I'm frozen.
It froze a little bit now. It's listening again. It froze a little bit. Hypothetically. Okay, you're back. Wait. Can't hear you.
Alright.
Now.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy stressful. Okay, the very end. Alright, I mean, that's a process. Fan base, build a fan base. Or, um, um, helped a lot on different things. So many
Wait.
years.
Hold on.
In a
Sorry.
sense, sort of knew who I
Can
was.
you say that again? Sorry, because it just froze and then it went too fast and then. So say that again from
Alright, so I mean, it's stressful. There's a lot of big anxiety that comes. It's really about planning. You got to figure out, you know, you're going to take a look at it. Um, and networking. Networking is like along, they could point you to the right direction, point people to look at your work, and so on and so forth. Try to find the right avenues that focus on that particular theme that you're writing about. That goes a long way as well. Finding groups, and so on and so forth. So it's a long, long process.
What was the first thing you did for the Kickstarter? Like, write it, do the video.
I mean, first and foremost, work on the damn book. You know? So I tried to finish the book before I launched, and of course doing the video. You want to do a video as well. I was looking for people who would be interested in covering it. You know, people who would be interested in reviewing the book. Just try to get the word out before I launch. You really want to try to build some type of interest. You don't want to just go nowhere and people have no idea who you are. Even though there are people who are willing to see something new and they're just like, oh, this is cool, but you want to have some type of friends, to get people interested in talking.
Nice, yeah. Now I'm gonna go through your let's see. I'm gonna go through, not read the story, but I'm just gonna go through your Kickstarter and showing people what it is to expect. I played the book. I was live last night, and I was actually gonna ink the Isnana sketch that I started, and the inking went horrible. My computer froze, so I just spoke the whole time, and I showed you a video. So we showed the video last night. Again, I'm really thankful for being part of. I'm not saying part of it, but I feel like I'm in history now because I grabbed you and I was like, hey, look at me, talk to me. But yeah, so here we're looking at some of the images that we're gonna see in the book. And this was before can you tell us a little bit about this? Not to give away things because again, we need to buy the book. And if you haven't supported, go to Greg's link. And can they still back you and can they still get the book through the Kickstarter?
Yeah, so the Kickstarter is still going on. Even though we got funded within the first 3 days, we still got 26 days left. So you can still get your copies and spread the word. Essentially, as I said before, this story is literally about Isnana trying to find himself. He's the son of a Nazi spider. He's trying to figure out himself while also meeting a lot of black figures and deities from different spiritualities and folklore and mythology. And pretty much the series, I just wanted to use it as a celebration for different black culture. And in this
Nice.
one, in this one I wanted it to be like a little bit of a hip-hop, breakdance culture, which essentially is black culture in itself. And I would showcase it's not finally being a kid, because we have all these other stories of him, going through all his responsibilities, but we don't see him actually having fun. And also dealing with situations he was going to deal with, such as, he's just dancing with his boys, with his crew, and dancing on the train is actually supposed to be illegal, even though it's just kids having fun.
Right. And so here, this scene here, when I saw it, I was like, why? I was like, everything was so happy. Like when I saw it on the video. And you mentioned it a little bit about, but why? And you mentioned that, you were supposed to drop it like a couple of years ago before volume 2. But sadly, this image is still relevant in the America we live in today. Can you tell us a little bit about this and why did you decide to add this? And I know your genre is more like a horror comic book in a way, which I love also because I'm a fan of Spawn. And I think you said that somewhere, that it's sort of like Spawn meets Spider-Man. But again, you made it your own. I'm not comparing it, by the way. But tell us a little bit about why you decided. Say it again?
That was actually my mentor that said that.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, but I mean, I did that thought because simply because, it's the reality of being black in America, especially the youth. A lot of youth, they're just minding their own business, trying to have fun, and they have to deal with maybe being stopped by the cops. Stop and frisk is a huge, huge thing, extremely controversial, and I feel like most of my students had dealt with some type of stop and frisk, or being cops, just for having fun, just for walking down the street, sometimes minding their own business, and so I just felt like if Isnana is going to be hanging out with kids who are kids of color, it only makes sense for him to have to deal, unfortunately, with the reality of being a black kid, which is he's never dealt with in all the other stories, and they even have a discussion with him afterwards, all the kids with him, and it's the first time that he's learning about skin tone and race in these stories in the series, and I felt like it was a discussion that needed to be done. It was, and as I said, this scene was written years ago, and we still got to talk about it.
Yeah.
It's obvious.
Yeah, so I commend you for that because it's not easy, to add this, into something that you always want to share. Sometimes happy thoughts, happy moments, but these are realities that we face, and we can't shy away from it. But as we see that reality, we also turn into a spiritual. I feel like it's so spiritual. Like this whole series is such a spiritual book that you deal with the physical, but you also deal with the spiritual, the mental, like all these things, and seeing the manifestation of, to me, like cartoons creating superpowers and transforming. This is spirit talk. To me, it happens every day. We just don't see it like this. So to see it manifested in this way, I don't want you to give anything away, but tell us a little bit about who is this character? Because we see here this character, right? Then we see this creature, like. And tell us a little bit about this image.
So that is a Imovie. Imovie is from South Africa. They're these sort of vampiric type of characters from South African folklore, and they're sort of like witches servant in a way.
Sort of what?
And one thing with Isnana is in the first story where he finally opens up his. Hear me?
Now you're back, but it was cutting off. But you said that he's sort of like a what? Oh man, what's wrong with this thing, man? Okay.
Am I good? Am I good?
Let's see. Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you now.
Yeah, so Infidulus, they're like
Infidulus.
witches, they work for witches and so on and so forth. And in the first volume, you find out that Isnana accidentally opens up these portals that brings a lot of these malicious figures from different worlds and realms. And so Isnana decides to be the one to track them down and bring them back to where they need to be. And this one, the Infidulu, he's one of the ones that Isnana tackles in this story. And one of the purposes was just to showcase, even for new readers, sort of like Isnana's everyday life. He's not a normal kid. He's actually a spider. He has to deal with these type of creatures every day. And I wanted to show like his reality versus these kids that he meets, and the fact that he actually enjoys just being a kid and not having to deal with this responsibility of fighting for himself.
I think that's so cool. Growing up, one of my favorite superheroes was Spider-Man. And there were so many ways to relate to Spider-Man. And seeing Isnana, being a kid, like normal life, but also fighting battles, fighting enemies. It just like such a breath of fresh air. I don't know if I said that, and again, I apologize if I'm comparing, but I feel like it's a good thing. To me, it's a good thing because to see good things when good things are complimented, um, it's for the better. It's not for anything negative. So I see a lot of good things here in your stories. I see a lot of things that kids could relate to. I see a new face to a hero genre. And when we talk about hero genres, not only did you make it indie, but your character is also like published in different websites where the whole mythology of him is written down. We have all this information. So it's not like you just came up with this and you decided to publish it and sell. Tell us a little bit about what it takes to create a character. And let me know also when you got to go. We might have an hour. We're 37 minutes in. I want to go for the full hour until Instagram kick us out. So if you have to go before that, just let me know and we'll get going. Sorry, but I get really into this. Tell us a little bit about what it takes to create a character.
I mean, it's really just trying to understand why you're creating the character. You know, learning what inspires you when it comes to the type of thing that excites you. You always want a character to have a little bit of much of yourself in it, just to try to flesh them out and bring them to life. But you know, creating Isnana, it was really like the core of it was just that I wanted him to be the next generation of African folklore mythology. You know, because a lot of our stories, in a sense, are sort of dying because a lot of us aren't really knowledgeable on them. We're not educated on them unless we have a parent who knows some of the stories that we're to pass down to us. And so, Isnana is just supposed to represent the next generation of reclaiming our roots.
Nice. And I think that's so important, because again, the stories that we get fed are only stories that some people are interested in. And we think that everyone is interested in the same stories. But the fact is that because we don't know our own stories, we don't have any other choice. But when we're presented with choices like these, I'm sure everyone just jumps of joy, man. And I guess I'm speaking from my own experience. Let's see. It's so cool. I went to Google and I typed this Nana, and when I saw this, I was like, oh my god, that's so cool. And to see like all your characters just like boom here. Let's see. What was it? Let's see. Where's the image? Okay.
I think you gotta move your phone.
Move it. Oh, there we go. Okay. In the I was gonna say in the earlier image. Let's see if it's this one. So when he transforms, why did you decide for him to have like instead of just like shooting spider web and things like that? Why did you decide for him to transform all the way?
Well, I mean, he's a spider. He's literally an actual spider. And I usually have to tell people he's a spider that turns into a lord. And when he came to our world, he sort of had to take this human form to survive and to look for his father. And so a lot of times when you see him in his spider form, that's sort of him going back to what he's comfortable with, because that is who he is, and he has to wear that sort of human figure as a way to blend in.
Man, that's so deep right there. Because to me, by the way, again, if anyone has questions, leave them in the comment here and we'll get to them. When we're almost closing, we'll probably have 10, 15 minutes to go through questions and answer. To me, that's such a big metaphor, when you just said that. Like, he's a spider, but then he turns into a human, and he pretends to be a human for the purpose of for everyone to get along, right? Do you think... Go ahead.
No, I was saying in a sense, yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was saying in a sense, yeah.
In a sense, right? But to me, I'm taking it as like, sometimes we have all these great things that for humans, as us, like we're so creative sometimes, but we tend to dim it down in order for things to get along. But when you're by yourself in your house, you become the spider. You become whatever it is that you want to be. You become all these big ideas but then when you go back into the world, you have to put a mask on and be like, hey, I'm just a regular Joe, you know. Um, what do you think about that? Like, to me, that's amazing. Again, another thing that all these hidden things that I'm finding within this story, that it just gets more interesting as I'm learning more about it.
Well, I mean, for him, the mask is the human face, you know. But at the same time, it's still who he is, because he is, when he comes into our world, he is learning things about himself that he likes, things that he never got to explore. Even though this world oppresses him, he's sort of learning about his own individuality. And some of that comes with the fact that he has a human face now.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also the duality of it. Sometimes you create a mask of yourself, or you have to hide yourself, but there's still an aspect of you at the same time, no matter what you try to do. And one thing I want to do with the series is, as it keeps on going on, he starts to really open up and showcase more so of who he is, even visually, with the people that he trusts.
Nice. So, in the past, you introduced certain deities that came to the world. So, we'll keep seeing new deities introduced to the series.
Heck yeah.
Oh
Every story
man,
have its own new, different guest star.
nice. And you also launched, besides Isnana, you've also launched the Gentleman, I think it's called, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, and like twins. What is it?
Yeah, Marasa. So,
Marasa. Can you let me look it up real quick? Can you tell us a little bit about that series and what is?
um,
Mm-hmm.
Gentleman of Marasa.
Oh, so you have those are two, right? I wasn't bugging when I said that.
So, Gentleman is actually work for hire. I don't own it. That I did for Elysee Publishing,
Mm-hmm.
which, but I was given a lot of free reign to play around with the characters. 2 issues came out. We got 2 more. Me and Massimiliano, the artist.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and it's like a Lovecraftian horror noir. I really wanted to really push the boundaries of what we see when it comes to heroes in horror, and like a Lovecraft story. Even though now we're seeing Lovecraft Country, and there's also the Ballads of Black Tom, but I really wanted to add on to seeing, like, say, like a black, queer character, especially given that Lovecraft himself was racist and homophobic. So I thought it was a nice way to sort of subvert that sort of genre with the gentleman.
Mm-hmm.
And Marasa is about these. It's an Afrofuturistic sort of sci-fi fantasy using a lot of African spirituality as its backdrop. About these twins who are pirates who find their parents and get a treasure. And just having a lot of fun with it. Hopefully, I can continue it. There's a lot of tape and stuff behind the scenes
Mm-hmm.
as to why. We'll see what happens.
Okay, that's good. But it's so interesting and important to see that not only are you working on your own, you're also working for other people, work for hire. And is Marasa your property, or is it you're working on it?
Um, Marasa is supposed to be my property. Marasa is mine. I created it. I came up with the characters, the concept. All of it's from my head.
Okay.
And the artists involved, they've all been really dope. But yeah, as I said, there's just a lot of behind the scenes stuff going on with the publishing company as to why it hasn't come out since. Still just trying to figure all that out.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, but Marasa is mine, Isnana is mine, Gentleman is not mine.
Okay.
Even though a lot of myself is in that book.
Yeah, no, and to see all the work, man, you putting in, and you're also a teacher. Like you said, my students. When you said my students, so how do you tell us a little bit about that, and then how do you balance all of that?
Yeah, I mean, luckily I'm not a complete official DOE teacher.
Okay.
But I'm a teaching artist. I work for an art organization, and I go to different schools every semester and teach video production, sometimes podcast.
Okay.
And when I was bringing up some of my students from before, because I had some of my students who inspired the Showtime book, that I had when I was teaching at art program for college. You
Mm.
know, and I had these students who were these amazing, dope ass break dancers. You know, and
Mm.
so that was what sort of influenced and inspired this Isnana story.
Nice. Now, bringing it back to Isnana again, and oh, by the way, and so you said you're not a full time teacher, so it gives you time to work on other things, huh? Hello.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Let's see if this gets. Okay, there we go. Now, getting back to his Nana, John Henry, right? So John Henry is one of the features that one of the characters you featured. Uh, One of the characters. Oh yeah, we can see it in the screen. But yeah, so one of the characters you featured, and what other characters of American mythology did you do you see collaborating with Isnana in the future? And when I read the story again, it was such a like going back to the past and like changing narratives. And I'm a big believer in that the past is there for us to grab from and recreate the past in our own way. I feel like we can not change the past, but we can reorganize the past and retell the stories in our eyes. So, tell us a little about John Henry and what other characters are you seeing in the future that you might be wanting to add.
Well, what got me interested in putting John Henry in this? I feel like aside from Anansi, everyone has heard of John Henry in some way. That's like the one story they teach you in Black History Month when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to teaching Black folklore. And so I knew automatic for years that I wanted him to meet John Henry, which never came out. But in it, he faces a whole bunch of robots, like the robot apocalypse. Um, bring him up.
You're back.
What was the last thing you heard?
So in it, he faces a bunch of robots, and I'm just gonna show it. How do I show this? Oh, I can show it from back here. So in it, he faces robots. Uh, yeah, maneuvering all this stuff is so hard.
And yeah, man, I think I had he dealt with robots and robot apocalypse. And given that this comic I was working on, I don't know when it's coming out. If it's coming out, I sort of just use that same theme and have it not be and sort of introduce that sort of idea. Since then, I've had a lot of people ask me if I can bring John Henry back, do something more with him. So who knows? I might do that. It's been one of my most popular stories so far. Um, and I just, honestly, I'm always learning, doing research on a lot of Black folklore, Black mythology, and spirituality. I definitely want to do something with Annie Christmas. So people who don't know who that is, look it up. She's sort of like a male version of John Henry, or like her own sort of character. She's really dope. I want to do something with her. Rare Rabbit, I want to bring into the fold. He makes a cameo in
Mm-hmm.
Volume 1, but I want to, Rare Rabbit has a very interesting connection to Anansi and Isnana with what I have planned, so I'm looking forward to finally doing that. And also the story of the Tar Baby. The Tar Baby is going to be very, extremely important to
Nice.
the
T- Who's the tall baby? And it sounds very interesting.
So in the Anansi folk tales and also Rare Rabbit, the Tar Baby was sort of like was a figure made out of tar that some of their enemies created to sort of capture
Mm-hmm.
them. And wait, so Laura says you can't hear anything.
Oh, you can't hear? Oh. Let's see.
Can everyone else hear? Is it just?
If anyone can hear, type it on the bottom, and let's see if we can fix these technical difficulties as always. Let's see. Okay, I'm good now. Okay, good.
Alright, so,
Here, just
what was I saying?
awesome. Thank you for the feedback, everyone that's giving feedback, by the way. You were saying that Tall Baby was a character that they created to capture something along those lines.
Oh, yeah. Good. Yeah, so, Anansi and Anansi, yeah, and because of their hubris, they actually get caught by
Mm.
Tom, you know, and Bissell,
Mm-hmm.
and have a very interesting gameplay. I think it's gonna be, if you're familiar with the Tall Baby story, it's gonna be very different from what you probably expect.
Nice. I appreciate that. That you said that because again, when we and sometimes we are afraid sometimes to change stories and to change narrative, but I think it's refreshing to transform things in however you can because these stories are for the world sometimes to take and transform it for the better, you know, for whatever way you want to translate it. And sometimes we feel like we cannot add to the stories that's already done. But this is why you have the freedom and creativity to add to whatever you want to whatever you want. Reimagine the past, reimagine the future, and it's all up to that creative person to do that. Also, I was looking for it, and I do have the PDF. You released a version of his Nana going to space. Now, when I saw that again, like I was like, what? Playing with like so. Another thing I love about the way you're making your stories is like it doesn't need to follow these paths. I was like, oh, today is this, then tomorrow that, and then it's like it just anywhere you think of, like you just create a story. So tell us a little bit about that part of the story. How does Isnana ends up in space?
Um, am I, I'm good.
Yeah, you're good.
So that particular that was all because of Keithan Jones. Keithan Jones is the founder of Black Comic Faith in San Diego. He has his own comic convention.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to do like a sort of packet thing for the guests, and he asked if he can do Isnana. And I wanted to do an Isnana story with Keithan for a long time, so I was like, yeah, let's find out. And he wanted to. He's the one who does a lot of sci-fi and space stuff, but he was like, yeah, I don't want to do any space things this time. I want to challenge myself. I want to do something different. So I wrote the script, and next thing I know, Isnana is in space. I'm like, what? And he was like, I'm sorry, man. I just thought it would be cool dynamic. So I was like, alright. And it fit well, you know, with Isnana being sort of like the story, like the prince of stories in a way, and Anansi being like this god of every story. So I felt like Isnana could sort of fit in all types of genres, you know, and even though it's marketed as a fantasy horror book,
Mm-hmm.
each story is very different. You know, there's not one story that's very similar. I love playing with different genres. I love mixing things up. I get bored, so I don't want to keep doing the same things over and over. So this is why every story is different.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that. It keeps you guessing, you know, it keeps you on your toes. It's like a fresh new look. The character is the same character, the same personality, just in different situations. And I love that part. That we can just travel with him wherever he goes. He goes to the past and fights robots. You know, he goes to space. And by the way, the scene in space was such an epic scene to me. And I was looking for I can't remember where I placed the PDF. That time you had it up, I was like, quickly download it before it goes away. Um, but there's this the fighting scene, and like the colors and like how everything looks is so cinematic. And the moment I saw that, I was like, wow, if like you kind of see everything moving and you see all these colors. When you are writing those scenes, how do you direct the artist to create this epic scenes?
I mean, I I write exactly what you see on the page for the most part. You know, like if I want a particular thing, I just script it in the descriptions and the dialogue and so on and so forth. But at the same time, I try to give the artist leeway to play around and have fun. You know, I'll have discussions with the artists. You know, if they want to try something new, something fresh, just as long as they discuss it with me, I'm very open to doing a lot of different things. Like there's a lot of ideas that happens in Isnana that was actually contributions from the artists themselves. You know, and so sometimes there are times where after a while I tend to forget sometimes what was mine and what wasn't. But I always want the artist to just have fun, because if they're not having fun, you can tell.
Yeah, you feel that.
Yeah.
Nice, nice. Well, so we have a few minutes left. In these few minutes, I want to see if anyone has questions. Let's see, people. Somebody said, I put a poll earlier, and somebody said, "How do you plan out your comic books?" I think you spoke a little bit about that, like you mentioned, but in a brief time, like what's your 1, 2, 3, 4 step when you're planning a comic book?
I mean, first and foremost, everyone always says, "Oh, I got an idea for the story. I got an idea for the story." Then when you ask them if they've done anything, and they're like, "No," they'll come up with an excuse. "Oh, I don't have to tell blah blah," which is bullshit. You can find just to write in your freaking notebook 5 minutes a day goes a long way. Because by the end of the week, you got a crap ton done. So, almost putting your ideas down, not being afraid of what your ideas are. You know, doing some research to try to find ways where you can hone whatever that idea is. You could even create like a plot line of the ideas that you got.
Right.
The ideas in order. Just write whatever excites you at the moment, and then after you write those scenes, try to figure out where they fit in. You know, just have fun. Don't be afraid to even just buy books on writing. You know, I have books about writing. I have books about writing for comics. Every time I find one of those type of books, it's in my library as soon as I see it. You know, and so it's always a process about learning. You know, you can't just write and be oblivious to what's out there. You know, you got to read.
Gotcha. Got it. Okay. So we have 20 seconds left on the clock, and you did say always read, and I always like, my motto is never stop learning for you. So tell us, what is one thing you're learning right now?
One thing I'm learning right now is being patient with myself. You know, being patient with myself, understand that the process will work itself out, just as long as you just keep on working.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, man. It's been a pleasure. Instagram is signing out. Have a good night. Well, thank you so much for everyone who's tuned in. I really appreciate your time. And this has been Greg DAE on Instagram. You can find him. Greg Anderson Elysee is his name. This has been Artclstudios. I am Hansiel. Appreciate your time. Peace out. Take care.
Don't forget to subscribe, follow me on social media, and if you like the video, click the like button. If you want to see more videos, click the video in the middle. And don't forget, never stop learning for you.